Good evening and welcome to our celebration of the New Poets Prize Poets 2020. I say 2020 because that's when they won the competition, but the structure of the New Poets Prize is such that the pamphlets, which we're launching tonight, have only just come out. They were published at the start of June. You can have a little look at them there. I'm Suzannah Evans, so I'm representing the poetry business. And please do, say hello in the chat and let us know where you're dialing in from. And I really hope you enjoy the readings this evening. We're going to hear from 3 of the New Poets Prize winners. Lauren Hollingsworth-Smith, right at the last minute, is not well, but I'm going to read a couple of poems on her behalf. So you will hear from all 4 in a way through me, I guess, which it won't be as good as the real thing, but it'll be okay. And we're also going to have a short question and answer session at the end. So if any questions do occur to you for the poets as we go along, just pop those in the chat down the side of the YouTube, and we'll hopefully get to answering all of those once you've heard some poems from everybody. Right, the first poet I'm going to introduce is Boyega Oda Banjo. This is his pamphlet Aunty Uncle Poems, which is a wonderful pamphlet. It says here it's a documentation of all the aunties, uncles, cousins, by blood or by choice, for whom London has become home. It's about family, it's about belonging. It's got a lovely sense of humour and a sense of community about it as well. Boyega was born and raised in East London. His first pamphlet, While I Yet Live, was published by Bad Betty Press in 2019. And he's currently doing a PhD in creative writing at the University of Hertfordshire and is an editor of Bath Mag. And Luke Kennard, who was the judge of the New Poets Prize, says that this pamphlet is deep, funny, thought-provoking, a powerful evocation of culture and family within the most assured phrasing and imagery and confident formal innovation. Blessed Princess Lady, which you may hear, is as beautifully strange as it is genuinely moving. I could go on at length about every poem here. This was so exciting to read, and I'd expect a major full collection in the near future. So please welcome Boyega.
Thank you kindly, Suzannah. Hello, bonjour, and happy Sunday to everyone. Cool, gonna read some poems. This first poem is called In My Country, and in the poem, there's a reference to the card game Blackjack, which is a little bit like Uno. Cool. In my country, we can be a bit boisterous, says who, loud, short as the back of a double-decker. It's just our culture. A few things to know. Bend your knees when you greet. Don't ask too many questions. It's left of the dealer. 2s on jacks, no jacks on 2s. The queen's a slag. I don't make the rules, I just want to win. It's not that deep. A man talks about fucking, another man talks about mothers. It's not a party until they're arguing about church and we're cooking our meat over burning documents. See, I know a guy, he knows a guy, can get you whatever. A clean cup of piss, mangoes in November, we got you. Just need you to pledge allegiance to the singlet, to the oversized luggage. Cool. Hope everyone's decent. Next poem is called Babel. Everybody going, gone. People packed, went, outskirts and elsewhere. Sound been bagged, aerial come down, music plucked from sky and scattered, tower come down, lives in matted, woven nylon zipped, uncle cousin gone, bass in backpacks, trunk rattle hushed. Couldn't no centre ever hold all that racket to know. Woman on the 67 bus with the stories, she's gone. Estate scrubbed clean of its grimy self. Loiter song gagged. Gap-toothed whistle no more. Song not ever. Pastor on the corner, mistakes empty for heaven. Communion run empty. No two or more gathered. No bodies here. Only ghosts and memory holding this nothing and nobody place up. Cool. That was Babel featuring the sounds of the ice cream van outside. Next poem I'm going to read as I approach halfway is called Break Equation and is after the recording artist Drake and the American astronomer Francis Drake. I'm running out of data on the train. Everyone is feeling particularly lonely. It isn't enough. Everyone and me, earplugged and stirring, is listening to something and considering charts and cadence of feet bounce. It is likely we are listening to Drake. Drake says, sometimes I feel good, sometimes I don't. He knows that until he bursts from carbs or cliche, we will love him always. Drake has been on our minds now for some 420 weeks at least. Everyone and Drake is wearing t-shirts with Drake lyrics printed on them. We are signing love letters and suicide notes with Drakeisms. It isn't enough. Wake up mumbling something Drake drool on our pillow. Wonder where else still we can find traces of him. We're only now just learning. Drake says, more life, more everything, always more, feeding every hour on the hour, all the amenities, the biggest residential pool on the planet, everybody in it, my critics and my friends, fat happy house, my children and everybody loving me, the pictures, portrait of the artist eating, portrait of the artist in the biggest residential pool on the planet, fat and happy. Drake's ear is to the zeitgeist, listening for something out there, shooting his shot into space, waiting. It isn't enough to hold everybody and their faces, sing it. There are so many people outside that haven't heard it yet. I don't know if they can wait. How long? Drake says, I do not know what permanence is. I'm only now just learning. I'm upset, doing the best that I can to be heard. I need more content. Next poem is called Oil Music and is kind of about oil companies and how they work with the Nigerian government to do some tomfooleries. Oil music. Call it a love song. I'll get the bathtub ready. I'm in. We in ceramic. Let's say black. I'm BP, your shell. We all in. We in the black. We both in a barrel. Call it a village. We both in the pumping, the people, no gets, no nothing, no crabs in the river, no periwinkles to pick, no day they pass where they know they cry, suffer this kind, suffer like this. We no care for them. I just want you to seep, blacken my lot. Lovely job. I think I'm reading 3 more poems. The first of which is called Diplomacy. Dad wants the head of the fish, but Uncle is eyeing it up and in a better position to get it. Dad has just learned from Uncle's son that what Uncle really wants is a bigger portion of rice. Mind, we won't know if it really is Uncle's son for another 2 to 4 weeks, but Dad, who can only assume it's Uncle's son, gives Auntie a look. Auntie, who is actually cousin, just much older, knows this look to mean if she can distract uncle with what he really wants, then dad can get what he wants, and he can give auntie what it is she really wants, which is for her daughter to stop giggling with uncle. This being another uncle who actually isn't an uncle at all. Dad knows that this uncle would happily give up giggling with auntie's daughter if someone could find him somewhere in the city that has good prices on necessities such as cow foot and ground crayfish. This uncle's been here 3 weeks, and other than the food at this gathering, can't say he has tasted anything like what he is used to. Next poem I'm going to read is called Blessed Princess Lady, and is after my mum and her best mate, Princess Diana. My mother is a good English girl. She does not eat for 40 days until her father reveals her names in its dozens and announces her a lady. Her parents are large, prominent members of society. She marries young. On her wedding day, she is a picture of youth. She gives her heart to a pot-bellied man who smokes cigars and ashes on the carpet. She curses the women in his family, swallows the tongues of the men and flowers their mouths. When she finds her heart, it is a bouquet of chopped Scotch bonnets. These my mother cooks with plum tomatoes, onions, bell peppers, Maggie, and feeds to her children who love her and hate propriety. My mother dies during a siege on her son's compound. My mother is found dead in her home. Her body is displayed at Westminster Abbey. My mother is a good Christian girl. My mother, full of grace, nothing be her body. Image alone, touch us spotless, pray for us. It is the 80s, and my mother dances with John Travolta, washes her hair, has picnics on heritage sites. My mother is a heritage site. My mother dies again in the biopics. My mother is a white woman. Nations weep. I am happy. My mother is a white woman and is treated accordingly, and this makes me happy. Because it is the 90s, my mother is hope, is holidaying in the south of France, is global. My mother asks me to stop killing her, but I cannot, I say. The work needs it, and I am greedy for feeling. The tabloids need a story, the people, they need it, I say. Every day, we camp outside my mother's home, waiting for her in the hours of her death. She comes to us with bowls of stew, tells us eat. Thank you, amen, we say. Cool. This final poem I'm going to read is called Brother. Brother, it's funny because the world is burning. This day is another. I wake up at 6:30. You south somewhere wake up. The day is itself. Metro become evening standard, become sleep. But today it's autumn, and it's been a court mandated 12 months, so you're driving again. The world is burning. I don't care. You say you're going to buy a Tesla, and we both know you won't. We won't make a difference, will we? Easy listening on repeat till it's smoke in the car, smoke in the streets. Cheers.
Thank you so much. That was great. It's so good to hear those poems read aloud, after reading them on the page so many times. Our next poet can't be with us tonight is Lauren Hollingsworth-Smith. So I'm going to read a couple of poems from Ugly Bird just in her place. So this is Lauren's pamphlet. It definitely is bolshy, funny, and unapologetic. It appreciates human relationships and the natural world without shying away from difficult conversations around things like toxic masculinity and mental health. These poems are tough enough to stand their ground and look you in the eye. I'm not perfect, and in no way do I want to be. And Luke Kennard has said that these poems are immediately and joyfully readable, even at their darkest. An Ugly Bird is full of masterful juxtapositions, emotional swerves, and perfect details. Defiant, ecstatic powers of observation, transfiguring the ordinary with wit and self-awareness. And Lauren is a member of Hive's Poetry Collective and the Writing Squad. Her work has been published in various anthologies, including She Will Soar, Pan Macmillan 2020. And she was a Foyle Young Poet of the Year, highly commended in the Young Northern Writers Award in 2019. She's performed at festivals including the Ted Hughes Festival, Off the Shelf Festival of Words, and Sheaf Poetry Festival. And get well soon, Lauren, as well. I'm just going to read 2 poems for now. I'm going to read you another one at the end. This one is called Cappuccinos. We don't talk about the night I howled like someone had shoved a skewer through my ear hole, or about how Mum, unable to escape my crying, made me a mug of tea and threw it at the wall, or about us all staring at the smashed mug and the tea running down the paint and dripping onto the carpet. The tea on my pack of playing cards branded with 35 reasons why I love you, and how 19 reasons turned into a sodden mess of tea and ink and card. We don't talk about the packets of paracetamols, how my sister slapped me and stuck her fingers down my throat, how I buckled like a breaking wave, retching out sticky foam, and how I couldn't eat, my body full with black jelly, how for weeks I lived on yogurt pots. We don't talk about how I was never able to tell you who I was, who I am. But love was etched in my sore eyes and chapped lips, in the shrieks and the silence. How it was there through the blood tests, the interviews. Instead, we sit at a table, all 4 of us, eating a banana loaf and sipping cappuccinos. And my dad says this is proper coffee, not that watery powdered coffee. These are real beans, strong and dark. And this poem is called Painting People. Painting people is what I want to be doing, spending hours mixing flesh tones to be reminded no skin colour exists, that looking at skin is like looking through that Pink Floyd prism, seeing it separate into purple, yellow, green, marine. I like big, bold, rough painting, slapping it on like my brush is a boot caked in mud, my canvas a wall, channeling last week's degrade, too many overdue essays, my constant bad hair days into screaming mouths, slab-thrown faces of black and grey. I like sculpting them in oils, their peanut butter, viscosity and dirtiness that stains my arms and hands for days, their silt under my fingernails. I like noticing the small things, a line on a face, a wisp of baby hair. How foreheads and cheeks are like moons, with their bumps and craters, the moisture on lips, glossy pebble teeth. I like stroking paper with brushes as thin as eyelashes, smudging together hues with my little finger, making shadows, blinking life into eyes through the dotting of a tiny white speck. Thank you. So now I'm back. I need to change my hat to my host hat again, but didn't bring a hat, so terrible. Although I am in my house where all the hats I own are, so maybe I did. Next up, anyway, sorry, I'll be quiet soon. We have Lucy Holt reading from her pamphlet, Have a Nice Weekend, I Think You're Interesting, which is, it's a witty pamphlet. It considers relationships, anxieties and sincerity, the difficulties of sincerity, the awkwardness of it, and is obsessed with hypothetical mothers-in-law, hometowns and being liked on the internet. Lucy Holt's poetry and non-fiction has appeared in The Observer, the Cleveland Review of Books, The Quietus, 3am magazine, The North and more. In 2020, she was the recipient of the Observer Anthony Burgess Prize for Journalism, for Arts Journalism, and she lives in Manchester. And Luke Kennard said, Holt draws the reader's fascination and engagement from such unexpected quarters through the most judicious deployment of detail. Eyelash curlers, dual carriageways, real-life encounters with Coronation Street actors. The juxtapositions are superior and considered, and I was captivated by the shrewd, clever voice throughout. Please welcome Lucy Holt.
Hi there. It's so lovely to be reading for you this evening. The first poem I'm going to read is called Blue Light Morning, and it's about kind of getting stuck in the internet late at night. In the backlit mirror of nighttime, a performance, we assemble at its perimeter, cheeks swollen with ripeness as a language. It's not news that red lipstick has always looked good, that eyelash curlers are terrifying to men, yet I devour intimacy, full ponds of description, 12,500 words for sort of coral, relearning backwards gestures of youth, knowing things named for revenge rarely bring it. Thank you. So yeah, as kind of Suzannah explained in her intro, a lot of my poems are kind of dealing with sincerity and insincerity, and this kind of compulsion to take the mick out of yourself or be funny, and then whether you should kind of resist that. Anyway, this poem is called What Good is a Muesli Woman? What good is a muesli woman or a woman made of gorse? One day you'll wake up and realize I was right about everything. There is no such thing as girlfriend material. I only made you up and go outdoors. The next poem that I'm going to read is it's about my obsession with the high street brand COS. I don't know whether you're familiar with COS. They make clothes for primarily women, but for everyone. And they make clothes that are kind of voluminous and angular and impossible to wear and impossible to keep hold of, take care of. And yet it kind of stands for a type of woman or a type of womanhood that I feel like I ought to aspire to, but just I'm not tidy enough or organized enough to wear these kind of triangular dresses all the time. So this is COS Woman. I have drawn my edges in an idea of resistance. A windsock woman, I am capacious and shakeable. I curate balloons in black, a seaside cutout, serious like wearing lead clogs to breakfast. I know small objects can be talismans. There exists a passable language of things. In charity shops, I wonder what will become of my short torso, my indelicate waist, the hot protrusions of my knees under desks in summer. And everybody loves a awkward dinner party poem, so this is my awkward dinner party poem. It's called Entertaining, and again it's about feeling awkward, so trying to make yourself the joke. Stood by the patio doors, you tell me what voice like cut glass means, and I want to go inside. Concertinaed open like those doors by your once hospitable arms. I'm doing my joke about how I only date the sons of mothers who appeared on Women's Hour, how my own mother calls this war. I am calling this confirmation bias. I am calling it a line in the sand. But you do look exquisite when you do quizzes, when you know absolutely nothing at all. So I flirt for practice with your mother's boss, who is American and here for some reason. On the drive home, I push my palms into the sunroof, feeling for weak points. As we take the lanes around the airport, I say, I thought you meant like a brightness or verve. I close my eyes and pretend I'm driving. All I've ever known is how to win. And it's called My Entire Life. In another life, I'd have been an events coordinator or maybe mothered foals. When the doctor feels his way around the back of my neck, I could be anyone who has ever lived. I talk to everyone spectacularly, even the burglar, even the baby. At the ice rink, the instructor tells me to stop thinking before I jump. But how? I'm just anecdotes and all the different flats I've lived in. Coronation Street poem or nightclub poem? Let's go nightclub poem. This is Birds as Constellation. I'm jealous of stupid birds who are sincere and can murmurate, yes, murmurate, without knowing how embarrassing it is to lean in. It's called murmuration, I say, which isn't the point. The point is I'm drowning. The point is that I've never drunk cried outside a nightclub before, never said I love you this close to a dual carriageway. My hands are so very far away, and I believe it is possible to see through time. How gorgeous they are, the stupid birds in their big empty sky. How perfect it must be. Which leads us to, I found myself writing an essay for an arts journal called Noit. And they are based at Flat Time House, which is an art space in South London and the former home of the artist John Latham. We were kind of collectively exploring ideas of thresholds and the house as a body and interior and exterior spaces, and it kind of led me down a wormhole of thinking a lot about Coronation Street and soap operas in general, and kind of the weirdness of the domestic spaces inside them. So this is a poem that kind of accidentally fell out of that research from watching kind of hundreds of hours of Corrie. So this is the death of the living room. The carpet is worn down from looping back. In the kitchen, there is shouting, it is female. After lunchtime wine, disbelief more readily suspends itself in the folds. Leopard print on leopard print, hospitality as hospitality, the implied TV on TV. Propped on sofa arm, I've gladly forgotten what I've been asked to forget about bodies of water, their long memories, the reverse side of the known universe, how things accumulate over time or don't. I too have sheltered from the rain, in the company of men who look tall under railway arches, with their hard use and inscrutable business practices, have misjudged the passage of time. More than once I have assembled a ritual of stools, left the hollow door ajar, raised my eye line to a false horizon, and winced like a bird in the half second before flight. And next I am going to, I've got 3 more left. This is called There Is No Word for This in German. In the 3rd decade of the 21st century, picking lint off a jumper is no longer a radical act of kindness. Your friends are all married or dead. In the 3rd decade of the 21st century, it is illegal to be bored of your most persistent self. In the 3rd decade of the 21st century, you stop shopping for clothes. There is a group chat for all mankind, you are admin. In the 3rd decade of the 21st century, it really is all about finding a workout that works for you. In the 3rd decade of the 21st century, all your exes turn 31, you bookmark an article on Saturn's return. In the 3rd decade of the 21st century, an old woman is brought down from the attic, all covered in mulch. In the 3rd decade of the 21st century, you begin to experiment with non-ironic rage. There is a word for this, you are unstoppable. And I've got just 2 teeny tiny ones left to end. These kind of came about towards the end of putting the pamphlet together. And one of them is where the title, Have a Nice Weekend, I Think You're Interesting, comes from. And yeah, there's kind of that COVID thing of ending up back in your hometown and forging a new relationship with it. And I kind of certainly had that experience in a way that I didn't expect to. So the first one's called Simply. Leisure centres, the stench of them like cabbage pie in Moscow. I've loved men from the coast who cannot swim. I'm always seeking a challenge. You've knocked me sideways. There are hometowns, and then there's this. When they talk of the palimpsested place, I don't think they mean simply. And yeah, I'm just going to end with have a nice weekend. I think you're interesting. My favourite topic is our mutual friends, of which we have none. I have never been this funny. You are nice to people in shops. In the gallery, there is hot pink tape on our shoes. I feel like a god, an art gallery god. I am face blind apart from you sometimes. And at night, you roll me across the wet grass to a gentle stop outside my mother's porch. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure reading this evening. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lucy. That was great. Really, it's just really enjoyable to hear those poems in your voice. I will now introduce our fourth poet of the evening, or third, depending on how you look at it, because the second one was also me. Georgie Woodhead. Georgie Woodhead's pamphlet is Takeaway. You can see it there, which observes a world where everyone is doing their best to survive, often through a lens of the meal times that bring us together and set us apart. From a takeaway eaten in a car park to chickpeas speared like love hearts, to a multi-generational cooking lesson. Brimming with inventive and tactile imagery, these poems play with domestic interiors where stereos send secret messages and a poltergeist misses doing the washing up. Georgie Woodhead is part of the Hive Poetry Collective and has been published in 2 Hive anthologies. In 2018, she was the winner of the Foyle Young Poet of the Year, highly commended in the Young Northern Writers Award, and second place in the Ledbury Poetry Competition Young People's category. In 2019, she was the winner of the BBC Young Writer of the Year and was Young Poet in Residence at Sheaf Poetry Festival. And in 2020, she was a recipient of the Newcastle Young Writers Prize and was highly commended in the Prole Laureate Poetry Competition. And Luke Kennard says, very important, Takeaway is a vivid and powerful collection. Expansive but precise lines and stanzas give Woodhead the space to explore the lives and scenes she depicts. So many of the images here are breathtaking, and the title poem alone was enough to convince me that I was in the presence of a significant and urgent new voice. Uncompromising in its depiction of brutalities without ever sacrificing the humanity and the compassion of the poet's vision. Yeah, I think he's right. But don't take it from me. Have a listen now to Georgie. Welcome, Georgie.
Thank you. Thanks, Suzannah. So the first poem I'm going to read is called Takeaway, after Sammy Gooch. After the explosion, we got a Chinese takeaway and sat pulled up outside Asda, crunching through prawn crackers that looked like freeze-dried jellyfish. Our mouths too busy to speak about the bodies we saw ragdoll flung before the sound even cracked. The apartment windows shattering in unison like a magic trick. The way water and air were sucked out so the world became a dust flood that crept under our tongues and hid like ants. Steam choked the car windscreen like a sauna and we glugged our coke, tangy and cold, while I replayed in slow-mo the man who hobbled out onto the street dragging a snapped toothpick leg. The girl with a dark red brisket gash across her cheek like raw steak with tarmac black grains peppercorning her skin. Instead of words, we kept eating, and you turned on the radio to hits from the 80s, and we dipped into the sweetness of hoisin sauce, trying not to think of its sticky darkness, our lips moving along to Jimmy, Don't Leave Me This Way. The next one I'm going to read is called Backtrack. I was born in a house where everything happens backwards. My sister sits cross-legged on her rocket ship duvet cover, sucks salty water back into her eyes. The mattress pushes her off. The shape of thick thighs, legs in black tights bent like Cupid's bows, unpressed from the bed. She stands over the broken bits of lamp lying shattered like a skeleton on the blue rug. It lifts itself back to the table, and the kiss of the light bulb seals a red grinning blister to her palm. She uncups its newborn head, leaves it glowing and unscorched next to her jigsaw, and walks backwards out the room. Downstairs, my father heals my mother's wounds by pulling bruises from her eyes with his fists. She snorts a little dribble of blood back through her nostrils as if it's nothing, like charming a snake back into the basket. Then she lassoes words with her red chilly tongue, swallows them whole into her throat. I can see how they slip down the inside of her neck, and how much she regrets everything. In a house where we all spit food back onto our plates because we don't want to taste the static stuck to our words. When we talk, it's in between regurgitating chickpeas speared like love-struck hearts at the end of forks. On the TV, I'm playful sounds like love. Help me. Women who stand on one leg. Have half a smile, they're unwrapped on special occasions such as birthdays. The bones in their face are high set and stiff like scaffolding. They unravel conversation from their tongues like dough from a rolling pin. Women who stand on one leg have difficulty moving around. They prefer to pose in front of mirrors, practicing their jelly hips, creaming their marzipan skin, polishing their peppermint teeth. At night, they sit on their beds and drop rat poison into their eyes for the squealing in their brains. The next day, they push shopping trolleys around tiled floors and fill them with desperate notes. Women who stand on one leg swim into the kitchen using their arms. They scoop pig jelly from their beating meat hearts, serve it for dinner, suck the sauce off their fingers like ice lollies, and try to fold their stomachs up into tiny paper springs while carving love letters into their hands. They tell their husbands not to chew so loud. The next one I'm going to read is just called Baby. My mother presses her finger into her swollen belly button, like she is trying to find an eject switch, a shiny, puckered undo. My father says she's beautiful the way she is beach ball and water balloon. She feels the hot blood stirring in her belly. My father blows ripe raspberries onto my mother and kisses the body under her skin, presses his lips to the pink maggot of its small mouth. He dreams of legs swimming in her tummy, uncalloused feet like white beach stones. She sits on the toilet and cries, tracksuit bottoms around her ankles. She sees her pale, squashed legs and says, fat, and the word fills her mouth like an olive. There are purple spider veins running under her flesh. She pinches the meat of her thighs with her nails, leaves puncture marks, cradles the bulge she wants to unpeel like an onion. My father is excited by the whole thing. Eyes a spinning mobile of crescent moons, holds it up and turns the silver shapes that look like toothy halfway smiles. My mother is the one carrying a tangle of limbs. She doesn't like the idea of my tiny hands reaching out inside her. I also just wanted to very quickly thank some people, because back when I was supposed to be doing the acknowledgements for this, I was very unorganized and unmotivated and did not have my act together, basically, which is why there are no acknowledgements at the end of the pamphlet. So I'd like to semi-make up for that by just saying like a quick thank you to the Hive community, especially Vicky Morris and Nick Perring for their incredible support. In particular, I learned so much from the individual mentoring sessions with Vicky Morris. I'd also like to thank Stevie Ronnie and the writing squad for their ongoing support, and thank you to all of the poetry business for bearing with me, in particular Suzannah, who I may have made life a little more difficult for. Also thank you to North Magazine, Northern Writers Cup Award, Hive Anthologies, Poetry Village and Foils for publishing my work over the past few years. I am so sorry for not being better organized with it in the past, and also now. Anyway, The next poem I'm going to read is called Tim, and it goes like this. His fingertips were pinched sandpaper. I know this because he would squat down and grab my chin and tell me how big I was getting. Tim wore jeans with chains hanging from them. He was not afraid to kiss Mum in the kitchen. When she was washing up, he would run his hands over her arse and bite her neck, like nibbling a steak before deciding it was good enough to eat. Mum would giggle with a high-pitched sound I'd never heard before, her slim fingers hugged by sticky yellow rubber gloves, spotted with the insect eggs of white soap. Tim dyed the tips of his hair blonde, frosted like sugary cereal. He believed that chewing a toothpick meant he didn't have to clean his teeth. One time when I was dressed up for a wedding, he called me pretty and winked at me. He took over the PlayStation to play Call of Duty on the burst blue beanbag, spilling its insides out like a squashed slug. He made machine gun noises with his teeth and swallowed the room with his exhaust pipe grease smell. He moved his CDs onto the second shelf in the living room. He microwaved ready meal macaroni cheese, stabbed the blistered plastic packaging with a fork, and hot air spluttered out. When Mum was at work, he left plates stacked up in a Tower of Pisa, brown sauce smeared over them in muddy tire marks. He asked me about my day at school, stood in my doorway with his deodorant of rusted metal. He says he is like a father to me, sits on the side of my bed and puts his hand on my thigh. He looks me in the eye and says, I mean it. And this next one, I decided just this second to read, so that's fun. Love a bit of anxiety-inducing spontaneity. This is What I Know About Alice. She is 23 and has a rattlesnake for a tongue. She's mentholated plutonium chewing gum. You can breathe her in, glow from inside out. She told me her father used to get giddy on petrol fumes and caterpillar dance down the street. I saw her hold an orange between her teeth and unpeel it with her tongue, her party trick. She hates it when the lights in public toilets flicker but don't go out. I mean, at least commit to something, she once shouted, imagining them as glass eggs for the flies buzzing to get out. Then she's curled up in a cubicle with her head in the toilet at 3 a.m., pushing out the old year through her esophagus like a woman in labor, cleaning out the insides her mother gave her. You know what else? When Alice was 10, she wanted to be a model. Before that, she just wanted to be funny. Now she just wants enough money to soothe the tumor-like ache, growing hair and teeth and a conscience deep in the pit of her. There was a time when Alice thought the babies just rolled off tongues like compliments. Then she learned they tapeworm rip through your gut. Now she knows you're stuck with what you get, like a single-bedroom catacomb, like a headache that splits her ears into eggshells, like a body slowly turning into an apology letter to itself. At night, she holds the moon and rocks it in warm arms, sharpening its milk teeth, saying, they're there, they're there. I think I will probably do 2 more, maybe. This next one is Why Mum Bit Her Tongue at the Crematorium. My mum had a blister on the base of her thumb, a tiny pocket of skin like a piece of white rice. She held peeled satsumas and broke them like eggs. She always had an orange lining under her fingernails, a moss that creeps into the gaps between bricks. She sliced an apple in half with a pocket knife as she held it in her palm, popped one slither into her mouth and gave the rest to me. When the flesh turned brown, I didn't want to eat it. The apple wedges were decaying teeth in her wrinkled hand. She told me they were exactly the same as they had been before, just older now. The apple didn't taste any different. If anything, it was tougher, flesh like polystyrene. She burnt the back of her hand on the oven grate. The skin was puckered into a swollen pair of lips, the flesh around it bruised black. She burnt it so often she didn't even notice now. The marks of old branding still lingered on her knuckles. She was with her mother at the end. She tells me the good parts, playing bingo in the living room of the care home, the buzz of a full house. She doesn't tell me about the hand-holding, liver spotted and wrinkled like onion skin, wiping the yellow boil of mashed potato off the corner of her lip, and reminding her where those white lilies came from. I think I will probably do one more, I think I'm okay for time. So this last one is called Dumplings. My roommate is teaching me to make dumplings. I slide my knife through lemons that split apart like burnt rocks. The pips bubble and spit as if they're simmering. He says he likes the smell. It reminds him of his grandma, whose hands rolled bread dough between dusky palms, crusting flour into cracked skin. She kneaded kernels of pepper into warm pastry with bloodied fingers, like tarmac being pressed into soft palms, baking powder stuck under her fingernails, knuckles peeling like ripe plums. He liked to add salt to his. Real sea salt crumbled into glass that he rubbed into the wound of the dough. His grandma lost her 3 front teeth to a bony fist. She talked with a lisp, shot saliva when she spoke, became unable to say her grandson's name. He used to pull the thin hangnails off his fingers until the skin around them was raw meat. She would squeeze lemon juice into the cuts and hold his wrist when he squirmed. She pushed the pips out and they landed on his fingernails like pale insects. She said, when you leave yourself vulnerable, you must expect pain. There's something about pain that smells sour. Sounds like the crunch of bones around a soft-skinned fruit. Dates are the toughest. Their skin is old leather. You have to stretch them with your teeth until they snap like rubber. He teaches me a trick his grandma taught him, soaking them in warm water to tender the skin. I don't like dates. I find them too bitter and veiny, but my roommate insists on folding them in with raw fingers, telling me I'll learn to like them over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgie. It was great. It was lovely to hear those poems, and it's a really wonderful pamphlet. They all are. So I suggest you check them out. We have like a bundle on the website for buying all the pamphlets together. So if you go to poetrybusiness.co.uk and you happen to want to buy all 4, you can get them for £15 with a special code, which Ellen is going to put in the YouTube chat for you. But it's NPP 20 $15. So there we go. If everyone wants to kind of start coming back, reappearing on the screen, it's time for the Q&A. We only have 1 question so far, and maybe I'll be able to improvise a couple. But so if you do have a burning question for the poets, there is plenty of scope for you to ask it. So do type it into the YouTube chat about now. Okay, lovely. So our first our question comes from Tim Relf, which it was a question asked to Boyega, but I think it's something that we could ask to all of you. Georgie, do you want to reappear as well?
I would like to, but something is very wrong with my camera. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. We can hear you though, so that's
good.
Yeah, we can.
Sorry about that.
We can work with it, and if the camera comes back, then
yes.
Excellent. Okay. The question is, which poets do you enjoy reading at the moment? So that's quite a broad question. It could be contemporary, and it could be all-time favourites, I guess. But yeah, Boyega, do you want to answer that first?
Yeah. So yeah, to go off like contemporary or not contemporary, the poets that whose books I'm looking at directly in front of me are Kayo Chingonyi, specifically A Blood Condition, which came out recently, and Nisha Ramaya, States of the Body Produced by Love. I think in terms of more classic, or not even classic, but like poets whose work I come back to often, it would be Amiri Baraka, Gwendolyn Brooks and Etheridge Knight, 3 American poets.
Awesome, thank you. Lucy, what do you think about those things?
I think they're really solid recommendations there from Boyega. I think in contemporary poets that have stuck with me recently, kind of debut collections and stuff. I love Holly Pester. I love Rachel Allen. Kingdom Land and Comic Timing were some collections that I that kind of came out in the last year or so, that just kind of moments of it, it's like absolutely stunning. And then in terms of poets that I kind of refer back to constantly, oh my gosh.
It's hard when someone puts you on the spot. Yeah, I know that feeling.
I love kind of modernist poets. I love Baroness Elsa and all sorts.
Thank you. Georgie, do you have any poets you want to add to the new Poets Prize reading list that is?
Yeah, sure. So it's great because as soon as that question was asked, my brain went entirely blank. But the first people that kind of came to my mind would probably be in terms of like more contemporary poets, J. Bernard, who I just think is amazing. And then like Buddy Wakefield for like some more kind of like spoken word stuff, and Holly Manish as well. But like I don't tend to read like a lot of poetry, which I think probably makes me a bit of a fraud. But I like listening to a lot of like spoken word stuff, so that's why a lot of them were mostly like spoken word. But I tend to read a lot of like short stories instead. So like short story writers, I'll probably go with like Eka Karat, like people like that, Murakami as well. And anyway.
And I think there is something there's something that poems and short stories have in common, for me anyway. I think they seem to have more in common than a short story and a novel even might have. There's something about the containedness. I don't know if anyone shares that opinion. It still looks like we're low on questions from the audience, but I assume they're all so well crafted and precise that you're all still typing them, so that's fine. I think I guess the question that maybe comes up quite a lot at these online events is, obviously you've had your whole publishing process in the age of COVID. You found out about winning the competition in about May, I think, May last year, and all the editing, all the publishing, all of this stuff has happened online. And maybe if you want to say a bit about that, and does poetry have a new normal now? Are we ever going to go back to how it used to be? I don't know. Should we start with Lucy for that one?
I felt, I don't feel like this process has been kind of lacking in any way at all. It doesn't feel like we've had sort of a compromised experience of publishing something and editing, and maybe that's not just because I don't have like a hard kind of opposite point of reference, but I feel like this is a really, really kind of beautiful way to do readings. And obviously it would be nice to be in a pub or in a gallery space and be able to join together afterwards, and that kind of the kind of social side that goes with poetry readings and publications. But other than that, I think this is great. I don't see why having, you know, events like this should stop when we go back to quote unquote pre-COVID normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mostly agree with you, actually. Boyega, do you have any thoughts?
I think that similarly, like in terms of the process, not much was different because I don't really like writing when I'm near other people. But yeah, the social aspect, that is very much different, and pubs are nice. But I think that one thing that shouldn't change is just like the greater access. And I think that music kind of went through a thing with the like increase of internet use where like things were more global and more easily disseminated, and like I hope that this is the start of a similar process for poetry, wherein we are able to have access to loads of other writers or whatever that we may not have had access to before.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, some of these events, we've done these online events, we have people dialing in, and you know, they're in Canada or wherever, and it's great. It's sort of thrown open the door really to people all over the world, and also for people for whom accessing a poetry event might not be so easy, or you know, they can, you know, there's a lot of opening up, I guess, that's happened. Georgie, do you have anything to add to that? Have you found it weird, or?
I think mostly I'll probably just be like repeating what the others have said. I think it seems like very natural now. I think like the whole kind of like online way of doing things has kind of settled into a sort of new normal. Obviously, yeah, like I definitely miss the kind of social elements of like readings and workshops. But they seem to have very easily sort of transitioned to an online setting in a way that doesn't feel too sort of weird or unusual. Yeah, I think it works quite well.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna close the event now, wrap up a little bit, but thank you so much to all of our readers, to Georgie Woodhead, to Lucy Holt, to Boyega Oda Banjo. We have and of course Lauren Hollingsworth-Smith, who is dearly missed, and we hope you feel better soon. And I'm going to read one last poem to close out, which is by Lauren. Just to say, we are keeping the video on YouTube for a little while, so if you missed it or you missed part of it, you will be able to watch it again. We're also going to go in and update the captions, because although we are using Zoom captions, sometimes it just seems like Zoom is wildly guessing at what you're saying, and we want to make sure that they're accurate. So if you give it about a week, the captions will be spot on. And I'm going to read this this poem for you now, and then we'll close the event. Buy some books. I know the link is in the chat, so make sure you do it, because as you have seen, they're all wonderful. Okay, this poem is called "It's Okay to Break," and it's after Nikita Gill and Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Everything does. Trees grow tired and give up, drop their heavy boughs and watch the weight they strained against shrivel up into confetti. Clouds lurch, moan and split apart, let the rain fall through. The earth is broken up by rivers, chiseled and beaten into V-shaped valleys, spurs like the jags on a cliff, on a zip. Cliffs are broken and hollowed out into caves. Waves break and they're beautiful, their slow, emphatic headbang. The white fireworks, the bellow and hiss, have captivated artists for centuries. The world is made of breaking, growing things. Buds sprout from naked branches, seeds break to let out green shoots, clouds break to let in the sun. Waves calm. La Loba gathers up broken pieces, discarded entrails, and sings life into them. And that is when the rib bones and the leg bones begin to flesh out, and the creature becomes furred. La Loba sings some more, and more of the creature comes into being. Its tail curls upwards, shaggy and strong. And still La Loba sings so deeply that the floor of the desert shakes, and as she sings, the wolf opens its eyes, leaps up, and runs away down the canyon. Somewhere in its running, whether by this speed or by splashing its way into a river, or by a ray of sunlight or moonlight hitting it right in its side, the wolf is suddenly transformed into a laughing woman who runs free towards the horizon. And you are made up of the same things that make up the waves and the valleys, the trees, the dismantled skeleton in the desert waiting to be found. So break down, fall apart, crumble. Let the shoots push through. Let the wolf leap out.